Today I sat down with Jana Krekic. Jana is the founder and CEO over at YLT Translations, a entirely focused operation looking to translate your Amazon listings to their native languages, and takes a really interesting approach here, only hiring ex-marketing talent that can actually translate rather than just finding anyone to do it. And she's amassed a team of nearly 100 people, all working remotely over the last 3 years. Super impressive. She has a great story, very, very switched on. And we talk about a lot of things about remote work, process, systems. We touch on lightly, but yeah, fascinating story and just a really great person to know in the space. So it was great having her on. And like always, I hope you get some value out of this. Welcome to Successful Scales, the show where I talk to world-class professionals on what it takes to scale successful businesses. I dive deep asking questions to people who are running unicorn businesses, to raising funds, to buying businesses, mergers and acquisitions, IP and patent law, what is to manage performance management. I mean, the list goes on. The idea really is, how do I create knowledge and learning for you guys listening in? And of course, myself, getting the floor with people who I, in many cases, would never dream to share a room with. Before we jump into the episode, I've got to give a special thank you to our sponsors. Firstly, over at Global Wide Advisors, a leading digital consumer products investment bank focused on optimizing the sales process. An incredible team, always happy to pick up the phone and educate you or anyone about the sales process and what you should really consider, and can obviously help take you to market or even acquire businesses. I ring them for just about everything these days. Us over at Multiply Me, we are the end-to-end executive search and HR function into the Philippines, helping find better talent and onboarding them effectively. And last but not least, Escala, our management consultancy focused on process improvement, where we help build better systems for your business. That's all the ads you're going to get from me, ladies and gentlemen. The rest is all about learning. I hope you really enjoy and get as much out of these sessions as I do, sitting face to face with some of the world-renowned leaders in their respective fields, asking them the tough questions that they're not often asked. Jana, welcome to an episode of Successful Scales. Thanks for taking the time to jump on.
Hi, Yanni. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I mean, we only connected for the first time a few weeks ago when we chatted and just, immediately hit it off. And I think you have such an incredible and interesting story, and, just how quickly you've grown. Not a whole lot of people that I've spoken to date have actually had growth like you. But before we dive into all of that, I'm just really excited to get into it and talk to you about some of the topics we were chatting about last time. I'd love you to tell everyone who's listening in at home a little bit about yourself and sort of build a stage so they understand who you are.
Sure. So my name is Jana, and I'm the owner of YLT Translations, and we are the biggest Amazon dedicated translation agency, and we help sellers expand to all Amazon global marketplaces. We do also eCommerce translations, Shopify. So basically everything that's connected to the seller community and products and selling online, we take care of all the content in basically all the languages that are out there. We've been working for about almost 3 years now. We've been established in December 2018. So not 3 years right now, but we're close to that. And I think so far we've worked with about 3,000 brands, maybe even more. I need to check the statistics. I haven't done that lately, but it's been an incredible ride, and I really like sharing the story, because I think that you never know what you can achieve, honestly. And having a translation business, you would not think that you can scale this much and you can do so many different things, but you actually can.
Well, I mean, yeah, I've heard some of the numbers and how quickly you've grown and a few of those things. But before I dig into why, I'd love to hear a little bit of your background too. I mean, we're talking about your ex-corporate, making that shift. How did you, I mean, I'm sure it'll come out, but why a translation company? How did that come to be?
Right. So in my previous life, I was a translator. And I speak 5 languages, and I got bachelor's and master's, and I was always interested in in languages, and that was something that I really liked. And I could learn a lot of languages. I don't have a heavy accent in any of those, and I was really, interested in just, the culture and everything. So, I was always, that was one of my passions, always. And then accidentally I started working at this small startup, and my first job was in their call center. And I had a fake name, like my fake name was Heidi Larson, and I used to pretend that I was in Denmark, in Copenhagen, and they were selling cell phone accessories. And at that point, there was like 5 of us. And then a couple of years later, the company grew immensely. It was insane. They had almost 600 employees. They were cross-selling across Europe, like 16 different countries. They were doing amazing things. They were very innovative, and my ex-boss was brilliant when it comes to quickly implementing everything new that comes out. And I think that's why he was so successful. And I was very lucky to learn so many different things. Like when you start something that, it's like a call center, and then like it develops into different departments, you kind of go through all of these departments. So like I went literally like from SEO department, which was not called like that like 12 years ago. It was like what we were doing, we're just kind of copy pasting some links on some forums and some keywords and stuff like that. And Google seems to love this, So we actually didn't have even like name for that. And then like I kind of went like across all of these departments. And at one point I was also the chief operations officer, and I had like almost, as I said, like 600 people beneath me. And that was very interesting. And I loved it. I loved people management, and I was very good at that. But then I kind of always loved that international marketplace scene, like with all the languages and cultures and stuff like that. And I got really interested in business development, actually, and in new marketplaces, where I came across Amazon. I was also sent out to open companies branch across Europe. Like they would literally tell me like, Jana, go and like open the branch. And I'll be like, but I don't know the language. I don't know anything. But that was like, challenge accepted. Let's do it. Let's see if I can do this. And I managed to do it every single time. And I was like, well, I think this is just amazing. Like to go to explore new countries, to help people, cross that barrier of languages and the localization and everything. And I also implemented the same thing when it came to their Amazon account. They didn't care a lot about Amazon account, so I couldn't play around with it like as much as I wanted. And this is when the first time like we had a lot of native people in the team. And I was like, well, why don't we just translate this content properly to different marketplaces, and let's see, what we can do with this. And then we've had some success, even though we haven't used any of the keywords. There was like no Helium 10 back then, or anything like it. We basically used like Google Planner for everything. And that resulted in some like good profit like on Amazon. And I was really proud of myself. And thanks to my ex-boss, who was actually a big like an asshole, and he did not appreciate anything anybody was doing for him in the company, I decided to quit my job like 8 years later. I actually wanted to quit my job like 3 years before I quit my job, but I just didn't have the guts to do it. So unlike other entrepreneurs, and unlike other these videos that you see that tell you like you have to be a risk taker, you have to be fearless, you have to be this or that, because if you don't have that you're not an entrepreneur. Well, I didn't have any of that. Like I did not believe in myself. I did not support myself. It was super bad. And but I definitely like I decided to quit my job, because that was like I kind of hit the wall, and it was like, okay, this is like I cannot like do this anymore. So I just gonna quit my job. And I was like, okay, so I don't really know what I'm gonna do in my life, but I know that I do not want to work for anybody else. Like I don't want to go and work for a corporation. I don't want to work for anybody that's like a business owner. I want to work for myself, And it was really like a weird transition, because I remember like after 8 years of like power suits and high heels and stuff like that, and high-end clients, I was left like in my home by myself. And I remember I was like in my PJs. That was before the quarantines were trending, and it was just kind of weird for me to be at home. And I would like be in my pajama, and I didn't know what to do with myself, because I didn't like see any people. It was just so weird. And I'm not an introvert. Like I'm just like social butterfly. Like I need to talk to people. And I remember it was like November, it was like raining. And I remember I did not leave my apartment for like a week. I don't remember if I took a shower, or it was just such a weird time for me. And then I started thinking like, it lasted for like a month. And so like, I kind of started getting depressed, which is really like unlikely for me. And then I'm like, okay, I need to do something. Like I need to pull myself together and just, figure out what I'm going to do. So I was like, well, I was always into languages and I kind of like the whole international scene. So maybe like I should just kind of start my translation agency for e-commerce, and I can do some e-commerce consulting on a side, because I knew how to build an e-commerce from scratch, like to literally everything, set up with the vendors, like finance, basically everything. And I'm like, well, maybe I can try out something like that. And that's when I bought the domain YLTtranslations.com, and that's how it all started. Unfortunately, it was a very, very wrong, very wrong choice of name and domain that I bought. My mom actually advised me that I should get something which could be like an acronym. So that was like an acronym from Jana Linguist team. And I was like, wow, this is cool. YLT Translations, it's cool. And then I just bought the domain, and I was like, me of all people should have known better, because I came from that industry. Like after 8 years there, I did not even check. I didn't even Google that name. I just thought the domain was free, and I'm like, okay, this is it, And then what I found out is that actually when you typed in YLT Translations, like you would get the page 1 would be about a young literature translation of the Bible. So it was Bible, the first 2 pages.
That's amazing.
Even if you would type YLT Translations, you would still get only the Bible. And then I remember I had this chat on my webpage, and then people would come to me and be like, so can you translate what it means, like 21 to 17 Matthew, or I don't know, like some other Bible.
One of the Bible verses.
Quotation, yeah, Bible verses. And I kept wondering, like, why are these people asking me this? And then I Googled and I saw the Bible, and I was like, okay, so it's me versus the Bible. Like,
you versus God right there.
Me versus God, and then I hired a great SEO team, and they fixed it. They fixed all of my problems, but it took them about 8 months to get me on the last result on page 1. So now when you type the YLT, you don't get the Bible anymore. But it was like I was like very embarrassed. I was like so shocked that me, like an e-commerce consultant expert, did not even think about that. That's why, because I just wanted to do something, like just end my misery, be just freaking buy it. Like I don't care, just like buy the YLT and let's do it. I was not thinking straight, and I didn't have a business plan at all. So I kind of did things like upside down. And this is when I first understood like how difficult it is to work for yourself. Even though I was a boss to like 600 people, and I had like so many different operations and everything integrated and all of these stuff. Like when you start working for yourself, you kind of start all over. That experience that I have helps me a lot right now when everything is kind of established, but it did not help me at all when I kind of first started. It was completely new, and I just like I didn't have the authority or anything. What we talked, like I made my day available 24 hours for everyone. I would not say no to anyone, and even to like people whom I've hired. Of course, I could not afford full-time translators, so I would reach out to people I knew from my previous company, and I'd be like, would you please like to work just for a couple of hours? It's not going to be a lot, just a couple of hours, and like literally like begging them to work for me, and they would get paid for that. So I was not like asking someone to work for me for free. I would pay them, but I would still kind of be like very humble and be like, thank you so much for doing this, as I was like, as they were doing this for free for me,
So I think you bring up some really interesting points here, and so it resonates with me. So I took a bunch of notes, and a lot of what you've said has really resonated with me. I think the first thing, or the last thing that you were talking about, is that whole transition from having an infrastructure. I also used to have teams and graphic designers and photographers and videographers and copywriters and, creative directors, the works. And when you step into making that shift to, I'm doing air quotation marks here for those listening, but like, when you become an entrepreneur, it's kind of like a readjustment where you think you had all these safety wheels before, and you assume that people sort of had the knowledge base that they were doing things the right way because they had built the company and they just knew what they were doing. And I only had to stay in my lane. But I think for me also, I quickly realized like there's a lot of shit that you don't know that you have to do and that you have to handle. And at the same time, I mean, historically, at least in my perspective, looking back, those guys didn't know what they were doing. Like I definitely know more as to what I'm doing today than they ever did for sure. And so
absolutely, that is so interesting, because I also think that my ex-boss had no freaking idea what he was doing. It just kind of happened and grew and grew. And then from this point, even after like 2 years with a company, like I would totally do things differently if I saw someone kind of scaling as he did, like very not elegantly, just kind of, like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm just going to let it grow, and I'm sure that I also know more than him or any other people that I kind of look up to and be like, wow, this is amazing. So that's really interesting thing you're pointing out.
Yeah. Like I hope she never listens to this episode, but one of the people that I worked with historically was like the traffic manager, ops manager inside an agency that I worked for, and the least organized person I've ever met in my entire life. And they were responsible for the entire operation and the flow of new projects coming in. Like, not in your wildest dreams, Jana, would I ever place someone with that DNA. She's amazing at other things. Sure. You ain't the traffic manager. So it's like, you go through this evolution and you start to learn all these things you didn't know about, but it's amazing. And the point that you made before, where you're at today, your historic skill sets had sort of brought you to, but it's those starting incremental. It's like you go through any build of any business and there's different stages, right? You go through the first, like, you don't have senior management, you don't have middle management. You go through this stage of like, cool, I can talk to everyone, whether it's remote or whether it's even, locally sourced and the team lives in one place. Like, I can always chat to everyone. And I've just gone through experiences now where like people that I worked with, 18 months ago are now trying to go over the top of like middle management and senior management to speak to me and, plead their case for situations. I'm like, look, these people have been put in place because we trust and believe in their experience. And that's the structure that we're building for the business. So yeah, I just found it really interesting, and it really just struck a chord with me thinking through like, not everyone, and this is for anyone listening, who is currently working for someone else and, and is in a position where they think that they have all these big aspirational dreams. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. And, taking that jump into trying really is the worst case scenario. And I look at this for myself. My worst case scenario is if everything fell apart tomorrow, I'd have to go and I'd have to work for someone else and I'd probably get a nice salary doing it. And that's like right now, that is my nightmare worst case scenario period. So, you can always try. And if it doesn't work out, then you can always go back to what you were doing. But really interested to hear more back to you now. Really interested to hear because we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago, a little bit about, you growing a team to 80, 90. Not all of them are 100% full-time all the time, but you've grown a sizable team. So let's take it aside for a second. It doesn't even matter full-time, part-time, whatever. That's 80, 90 plus bodies that you have to interact with, that you have to structure the processes. They have to be aligned with what the delivery is. You talk me through actually how stringent you are when it comes to proofreading. It gets proofread twice before anything actually gets delivered. And, would love to hear what it's felt like for you, sort of going from you and then a few people that you had to beg to pay them money to come and work with you to, 3 years on having a team of 80, 90 and being reputable, 3,000 brands, I think you said, plus that you've worked with. I mean, these are all incredible feats in such a short period of time. So yeah, I would love to hear what it's been like for you.
Yeah, well, at first it was, it was so hard to get clients in the beginning, and I just kind of like the whole, series that you're doing on stuff, because people don't hear the real stuff like this, like people just go to a motivational video on YouTube, and like other people that are gonna be like, you have to be like these people. And unless you're not, you're gonna be like, no, I'm not cut out for this because I'm not clearly like this person, and I'm here just kind of regular person. I'm not even based like in the States, like I'm based in a poor Southeast European country, like I'm not even like, my starting point was worse than probably 90% of other people out there. And I'm just saying that you don't have to be like, you don't have to follow that kind of role model that you have in order to achieve your goals or to feel good about yourself, because I think those goals can be achieved with like so many different ways and like different paths. So it's not the end of the world if you are very much different than other successful people that you know. But
anyone who's telling you that everything is sunshine and rainbows all the time and it's all perfect, they're full of shit, and don't trust them, because the reality is, there's always going to be hurdles. We're both in service-based businesses, which I think makes it even more interesting for the topics that we'll probably chat about now. But like, there are just so many moving pieces, and at the end of the day, people aren't promoting the businesses that didn't work out and the things that failed and didn't go to plan.
Yes.
But it happens to everyone.
Failure is not what people want to talk about, because that's not gonna sell themselves and like get them followers and like, boost their egos. And it's a big ego game, in this industry. It's like, it's all about like, who says what and who follows who likes, who posts a picture with me, without me, and stuff like that. So just forget about those successful stories, because a lot of them are not even true, I think.
It's all crap.
But anyways, yeah, it's all crap. It's all bullshit. Just forget about it. Just listen to Yanni. That's it.
Well, I'm an idiot, but I have lots of great guests like Jana. So that's my trick. You just bring in the people who have done impressive things, and then you can piggyback off them and learn from them.
So funny. But talking about like the beginnings of like with my team and stuff, and getting clients, because I did not have any clients. We were kind of new, and I didn't know actually like where to start. And then I remember that, our website was kind of it had like everything on the website. It was like e-commerce, like build your store, Amazon translations. It was like a lot of different segments. And then we've got a couple of requests from people asking, if we do Amazon translations, but they kind of didn't like that we kind of do a lot of other different stuff, all e-commerce related, but they kind of like the Amazon idea most, and they would probably not hire us because we were not like kind of niche down to some certain thing. So I decided to so everything was on the YLTtranslations.com website. So I decided to migrate everything to YLTtranslations.net. And which is also, it's still there till this day. It hasn't been updated in forever, but I kind of still have it. And then I decided to make YLTtranslations.com as an Amazon dedicated website, because we were having traffic and stuff. And I'm like, okay, let's just gonna do this migration. And it turned out to be a very, really good idea, because people really love when you niche down. And even today, people ask me like, so do you do anything else apart from translations? And I'm like, yeah, I will probably start something else, but it will not be an add-on to YLT Translations, because I've got a lot of people telling me like that they really like that we only do translations and not like a full service provider, Amazon, full service for Amazon sellers, like account management and PPC and product compliance and all stuff like that. And that's also what I did like. I kind of love when you niche down. And that's also what others also like. I think that like 80% of people really like that we kind of offer just one thing and we are best at it. And I also think that if anybody else could kind of niche down and find that really, really good niche, I think this is really, the way to go. Of course, there are like a lot of very big agencies that do everything. They're super successful. But I'm saying, if you don't know what to do, if you're not sure and business is not doing that great, I'd say that you should niche down and find something which is not that competitive niche, but people still need it, and just gonna make the best out of it.
You bring up a really valuable point there for anyone who's building a business, and I think it's like very typical for most businesses, whether it's service or product or whatever. You're trying to find your product market fit. You're trying to find where you fit in and where you can have the most impact. And I'll tell you candidly, when we started Multiply Me, I come from a background of creative advertising, digital marketing. I've deployed, 50, 60, 70 plus websites in my career. I leveraged another agency out of the Philippines and I was deploying websites. I was like, this is an easy way for us to add a lot of value to our clients and make some money. And then we were also like, well, we can staff every business. We can staff anything that you want. And even our first the first consulting engagement we ever did for Escala was for a company in Australia called Drainflow, where they literally stick cameras down tubing to see the structural integrity of the tubes when concrete is poured in. Like we were doing everything. And we were starting to generate revenue and that was great, but we weren't focused. And so when we said, you know what, we're really good when it comes to e-commerce. Lippy and I were both ex-Amazon sellers. We took a business to 5 million. It got acquired by Thrasio. We went through that whole process and we said, you know what, there's a huge demand here. We don't need to just try and take everything, which I think is typical, and we niche down. And so like you making that decision to niche down, for anyone listening to, it actually can mean the difference between like exponential growth and just sort of flailing and trying to just make everything work. And so, yeah, I'm with you on that. If you can focus and you can drive true value and double down on what that looks like, then you're going to have a much bigger impact. But we were talking off air before about your time or the presentation that you gave at Geek Out in San Diego. And I just think it's a fascinating topic and one that a lot of people are forced to deal with now. So the topic for those listening, the topic was the difference between having an entirely remote team, and both Jan and I, all of our teams are entirely remote. No one works in the same office for the most part. And you were saying, Lazar, your fiance, is all currently in-house. Everyone is out of the office. Yeah. Is that right? So I'd love, talk me through your position on this, because it's rare that I get to speak to people that have such a large dispersed team.
Yeah. So our team is fully remote, and they are scattered across 15 or 16 countries. And I have to say that the translators are located in first world countries. Not talking about Philippines or like some other very poor countries that people used to find BAs and translators. This is like Germany, France, Spain, Italy, United States, countries like that. And I still get 40% of margin. So it is possible. And I'm going to say that, you don't always have to just, focus yourself on these countries. Of course, depending on the position that you're looking for, but you can still find some like really amazing people. Also, if you like look away from certain countries where a lot of people hire their employees because they want a remote team. So, like a couple of things that are kind of really cool when it comes to like a remote team, like pros are that you don't have to hire employees from a specific location. And there are like a lot of expats that actually will live in the Philippines or in South America. And they will actually be like for instance, like for us, it's important to be a native translator or a really good project manager. They want to live in Portugal, where the cost of living is less than in France, and they are French, for instance. So you really don't have to focus on a specific location, which is always good. And then second of all, it's low overhead. You literally don't have any of those, like really non-existent. Third thing is like employees are much happier. And somewhere I read that if the company can offer a remote position or like to work from home, employees are like 60% happier. So it's always good to be able to offer someone to work from home or like to work remotely, or to have an extended vacation. Like everybody loves that, especially like you have like a very young team. Let's say a team from like 20 to like 25 or 6. What's important for them is like to go to the seaside, or like to go to Bali, or something like that, to just gonna feel that digital nomad life and stuff like that. And they could be amazing people and add on to a team. So if you let them do this, they will definitely be a good asset for a company. And that turned out to be a really good idea to hire someone like that. But when talking about like cons, a very big problem is cultural barrier and problem in communication. This is something a lot of people really they really have a problem with that, and they don't know how to solve that. Like for instance, like for us, what was the problem is like in the very, very beginning, I used to hire a lot of Serbians because I'm located in Belgrade in Serbia. This is like my base. And it's a country that, like 600, like $700 is like an average salary, which is kind of 4 times less than like you would pay in the States or anywhere else. And I would hire Serbians to be team leaders for different languages. So every team has, let's say 10 translators from France, or they're French, and they're led by a Serbian person. This turned out to be a very, very wrong decision, because a lot of times, because we usually communicate on Slack, or when we do have team meetings, and then a lot of people cannot attend, blah, blah. It created a lot of miscommunication because of the mentality, because of the way how people react and how things are taken care of. And this was pretty much like most of the problems were solved when we hired a French person or any other person in that same country and that same mentality to take care of that team. Because you wouldn't believe like how many miscommunication problems were there just because of the different mentality, the way of speaking. Like French are like sarcastic, they're kind of pretty serious. Serbians are not like that. It's completely different business culture and everything. So that was very, very important. And I think that like all the US companies that have like a US person lead, I don't know, the Philippines team or like Ukrainian team, I think that's a very big problem. So what I think is like they should do is like they should have like a local person lead the team, and then that person should be responsible to like a C-level management, which should be definitely a US level management. And I know that also like Thrasio and other very big companies, they would never outsource their C-level management to any of these other countries, even though they do have a lot of teams outside of the US, because I just think that's the right way to go. And then of course, when talking about like remote work, con should definitely be software upgrades, which you have to pay for. Or for instance, like if you have to have like history on Slack, it costs a fortune. Like if you have like a very big team to have the history, which is always it's a good thing to have. And also like when people work from home, they get like very distracted. Like it's either going to be the kids or it's going to be like a poor answer rate. They're going to be like watching a TV show or something, or they're not going to be responding. Like they took a nap and you have no idea what they're doing. So that's something that you always, kind of have to, try to control. Like for me, like what the problem was like that when you hire someone, like people would find me on Facebook and then they would send me messages there. And then I would tell them like, no, like you have to like send me a message on Slack. And people were just like, yeah, sure. So but they saw I already responded on Facebook. So the thing I said about Slack was going to be like, well, that's probably not top priority. So what I did is like I completely stopped responding anywhere else until they contact me on Slack. And this is where I would respond. So this is how they kind of figured out that this is the only place where we should use for business. And what really sucks the most when it comes to remote team is like that your employees, they don't have that casual small talk. They don't see each other. They don't hang around in the kitchen and stuff like that. They don't have all like team buildings, food Fridays, and other stuff that you do like in your office. So that's something which is really hard to control, and it's kind of hard to make them happy and feel connected. Because, for instance, I didn't think that people would want to kind of get to know their team members, but I did once have like this super cool like Christmas raffle, and people were so exhilarated. They kind of saw each other, talked to each other, did stuff together, blah, blah, blah. So people really want to get to know other team members, even if you think that they would not. They would love to kind of spend more time with your team members. So that's something also which is kind of hard to achieve. But there are a couple of techniques and some like really cool stuff that do work with a remote team that kind of made my life easier.
I mean, you make some really interesting, valid, and honestly points that I've also experienced and gone through as well. So, our team's totally localized in the Philippines. So, and this was a discussion that's come up plenty of times. Like, do we start expanding into nearshore?
Yeah.
Do we look at other aspects. But one of the things that we thought about is like, well, what's the cultural impact? How do you manage that? So even just sitting here and listening to you, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you can have someone who is a really great cultural bridge, for lack of a better term, if you can build that cultural bridge in terms of C-level management and they can build out the teams in the other countries, then maybe that makes sense. So that's really interesting. To your point about like not having the water cooler lunch break type of deals, we've got a few things that we do internally. So we do every Monday, we have a Monday coffee break game where for an hour, we get the whole company together, and each week someone else is responsible for creating this competitive game, and you actually win prizes each week. And we have a leadership meeting where we review aspects, and it's dialogue. So we create some of those aspects. We even do like food vouchers where we create like team meetings where everyone's eating together, and aspects like that. Definitely going to be harder when it comes to all the different time zones, and you're talking 15, 16 different countries. But I just, to echo what you've said, I agree with all the points and all those challenges, how you can sort of combat them.
Yeah, I also think it's very important, those, like video calls and video meetings. Like, for instance, like what we do have is like a once per month, like group trainings performed by different team leaders. Because when it comes to like translators, and I'm sure it's similar with other job positions, like when you've had someone in the company for a long, long time, they can tend to relax. They start making some mistakes. Nobody checks up on them because they're kind of your senior coworker. And so we kind of tend to kind of freshen up like everybody's knowledge like once per month, because we tend to see like a lot of basic mistakes from senior translators. And this is how we tend to kind of, keep that like under control. And what's very important when like hiring people and stuff is the knowledge base. Like, for instance, like when we hire a new translator now, we basically just give you a link. It says, click here for starter pack. You have like 1, 2, 3, you have the videos, and like, I love Loom videos. It's like, I always say something in a video, because even if you want to like type something like on Slack or like in Sana, when people see you, like you're addressing these people, if it's a video and then they watch it in their own time zones, it totally makes a difference. And I just think that real life team buildings are super, super important. What I wanted to do like last year, I wanted to fly everyone into Belgrade for like a weekend, but then COVID happened. But I still really want to do it, because after this Christmas raffle, and we did like a couple of smaller team buildings in Belgrade, but not with everyone. But I literally wanted to fly like everyone to Belgrade and just have fun. And after the Christmas raffle I did, it was amazing, because I think a lot of your employees don't understand what kind of company that they're working for. And especially if you're scaling, they don't see that. They just get like random tasks and like, that's it. And you're gonna have to appreciate your employees. So like what I used to do was like, when there was like a smaller group of my employees, I would remember their birthdays, the dog names, boyfriends, like what they like, what they live, and stuff like that. But since now there's like so many people, I don't even know half of my team anymore, and I don't talk to them. Like I have like a Google sheet with information about everyone, and then my assistant like fills out all of that. So when somebody addresses me or I need to address someone, I ask them like a question of like, I don't know, like, how's your grandma? Because maybe, she was not available last week for translations because her grandma was in the hospital. So I asked like, how's your grandma? Or something like small detail like that. People appreciate that so much. And then they think like, oh my God, like my employee cares so much about me. Especially because like as a translation agency, people don't have that sort of relationship with their translators. And so I kind of tend to tell people that they're doing an amazing job. I love to give like bonuses. And what I also understood, like with the bonuses, like I first thought like, oh my God, like I cannot afford to give like a $500 bonus every month, which also comes back to my like, I cannot say no to people. I cannot set boundaries. And I'm like, yes, I can give them less bonus because this is my company and I don't think they're going to get offended. So I was like, let's start with like, I don't know, $30. And they were happy with $30. They were like super appreciative of like $30, because this is also like, of course, it's not that big of a financial element. I mean, depending on how big projects are they're working on, but it just shows them that they are appreciated and you actually care about what they do. And but the Christmas raffle was very, very good, because I kind of made this like small presentation, And I kind of I portrayed the numbers. I'm like, so when we started this year, we were here. Now we're here. Number of projects, number of listings, number of like, I don't know, the revenues. I know all the fancy charts, the colors and stuff. So they understood like how that we got there like in a year, and it was all thanks to them, and that we could not have done that before it. And it was such a cool presentation, and people loved that so much. And until then, I kind of had problems finding right people for the job. But now they started like recommending me their ex-coworkers and some other people that they think that were going to be great. But they were not doing that before because they were not aware of like how fast growing company we are and how many amazing things that we did. Sometimes they don't even realize like we're doing like, Sephora brands like for international marketplaces and stuff like that. So you need to tell them this. You cannot expect these people to know this. Even sometimes you'll think like, well, of course they know this. No, they don't. So you should treat them as they know nothing, and you should kind of make something from scratch for them so they're aware of that. So if you can kind of build the hype inside of your own company, that's going to do so much good for you, for employees, for overall happiness, for everything. And then of course, like these bonuses, I think that's very important. And on the Christmas raffle, like it was a lot of fun, like as you do the coffee, the morning coffee cup on Mondays, you really also need to have some fun. And what we did is like I asked them like, what are what are the craziest products that you remember that we translated this year? And then people will just like me, pick me. People just like so engaged.
That's fun.
And then
that's so fun.
And what I did is like we had this like Christmas wheel with all of their names on it. And then I was like, so you know what? We're gonna have like a giveaway of this crazy product. And then whichever product they named, we gave it out at this raffle. And then as the main prize, I gave like a lot of money to one person. And that was just so much fun. And some people tell me, because there was a video of that, and people tell me they kind of rewatch it, and that kind of changed a lot for our company last year.
Well, you've built a serious culture now. You've moved into a phase where we have what we call our town hall meetings once a quarter, where we get the whole company together and we present, and it's structured. And you're right, you build that hype, you share the story, you get them excited about what's actually happening and how they're contributing to what the mission, vision, and direction of the company is. And obviously, without everyone in your team, it's not possible. I mean, Jana, I could talk to you about these topics for eternity.
I know,
but I'm just looking up at the time, and I'm realizing that
it's closer.
It's crazy. So before I let you go, anyone who has been listening today and might want to get involved, needs translations, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'd say that you can basically contact me on all social media. I'm there on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, or you can shoot me an email at Jana, that's JANA, at YLT-translations.com. And I will respond in 48 hours.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to give those and create those boundaries, right? Well, on that note, Jana, thank you so much for taking the time and sitting down. And yeah, it's, just hearing sort of the way you break things down. I've gone through a similar journey with what we're building too. And, it's like unlocking that next layer, that next level. Like, how do I continue to build the company that I want to work at, you as a founder, and also attract people? And you're clearly achieving that when you're getting referrals from all the different people that are currently part of the organization. So congratulations. And yeah, it was just awesome to sit down and chat with you.
Thank you so much. We didn't unfortunately have time to mention processes, which I think are super, super important for a company, and you would agree with that. So whatever you're doing, you have to have your OKRs, keep them simple and keep them measurable, and to have KPIs, like smarter KPIs help everyone, and definitely your knowledge base. I would say that like those three things are super important. You're gonna have that like as a basic of your company, and then you cannot scale without having some solid processes in it. Like you can get lucky and kind of scale, but at one point you'll have to take care of your processes. So this is something also to think about.
Spot on. And, like me, as someone who builds process into everything we do, just hearing the way you describe aspects of how you run your operation, it's very clear to me the level of process that you have inside of it, from your onboarding to the training link. Like, you've been very methodical on how you look to approach scale. But it kills me that we have, because I'd love to have a whole another session on this.
Me too.
Maybe we'll get you on again and we can talk all things process. But until then, Jana.
Yeah, I'd love that. I love the whole technical side. I'm kind of nerd when it comes to processes. So that's something people, it's kind of a very dry topic, but I think it's so important. I think it deserves like a different episode.
Well, we'll have to do that. So until then, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.